Hello everybody, and welcome to the first Investor Collective event here at Mario 01. It's good to see people here on site. We also have people joining us over the live stream, so it's on Facebook if your friends or colleagues are asking where they can follow up on the event. Maybe I can share a bit who I am. So my name is Jussi. I'm our Chief Network Officer here at Mario 01. I have people from our team here as well. In the back we have Despina and Henry here as well. So we're taking care of the community here in the house as well. Maybe a bit about the Investor Collective, since it's something that we just launched a couple of weeks ago. And maybe a bit of a story to why it has been initiated in the first place. I think it was in the beginning of the year when it was me, Ville, our CEO, then there was Sami Lampinen from Venture, and Kassu from Superhero. We're sort of like thinking that, it's really nice that we have a community of startups and investors in the house, but it would be cool to do something more together and bringing people together more often. And obviously we have great teams in the house and investors who are, have great expertise when it comes to, their own experiences, but also great cases in terms of the portfolio companies. And, there's a lot of knowledge that we could sort of share more jointly together. And that's why we wanted to initiate the Investor Collective. So the Investor Collective is basically representing all the in-house investors who are located physically here at Mario 01. And the concept is very easy. It's just an investor member who's hosting an event for the community once a month. So we're happy obviously to kick off the event today with Superhero. In October we're going to have Maki VC, November in Venture, and in December Play Ventures. So those are the next events coming up. And the idea is really to get deep into a specific topic prepared by the investor. So therefore today we're going to dig more into insight-driven companies and have some really great stories that will be shared here today. And people on the stream, don't hesitate to comment the feed if you have questions or anything. We will do our best to make sure that you are also engaged here. But yeah, without any further ado, I would like to give the stage to Jakob from Superhero, who will share more about what insight is. Right?
Sure, thanks. All right, thanks everyone. Okay, we're happy to kick this off, so let's see how it feels. And yeah, if you're on the camera as well. At least we are going to have fun, at least, because we're going to talk about a topic that we love and are excited about. So I hope that you also are going to have a good time. But before we get down to the fun part, I'm going to tell you about Superhero Capital. So we are a VC. We've got two funds from which we do investments. We do seed stage investments. For us, they're on average 400,000 euros in initial investments. Smallest investors, just come and knock on our door. We're not far away. But now for the topic. Let's see. There we are. So we're going to talk about something called insight today. Insight is refined data, short definition. And I'm gonna introduce a topic and give a few examples and kind of drill down a bit on a few particulars. And we're gonna have some other people telling more about insight-related stories. So there's been a lot of talk about, oil or data being the new oil, right? But how valuable is data actually as such before it's refined into something that you can use? Not much, I would say. As with oil, you need to refine it into something that you use as fuel, right? So same thing here with insight. You following me? Roughly clear? I'll give you an example. Let's look at some long Finnish words. We've got some really cool 3-letter acronyms. It all looks kind of fancy, right? But a question to you now, in the audience, can any one of you tell me if I should change my diet based on these results?
Absolutely.
You're guessing and you're probably right. You don't need the blood test results to tell me that, right? So a few people can. If you're a doctor, you probably can, or not, because I hid part of the screen. So data, the first one, these empty kind of circles with no categories. So data has been defined as signals or signs that have a non-usable characteristic. So the key about data, or the characteristic, is that it's non-usable. Then when we look at information, you can see we're getting some categories. There's like, it requires a sense of good and bad, right and wrong, ethical and unethical. So we're kind of moving into the human domain here. I think most people would agree that like machines are not there yet. And I'm actually not going to say a lot about insight, because we're going to have some other people talking us to death about that. So insight is, I guess, its key characteristic is that it's actionable and it has context. One researcher defined or talked about wisdom and said that insight is the sporadic manifestation of wisdom. So kind of wisdom used in a specific case. Then we have the fantasy in the end. So when you have your first customer and you really want to believe that you have product market fit, you're getting close to that domain, right? Great. So we're nearing the end of my part of this presentation. And guess what? There are two kinds of insight. There's external insight and internal insight. External insight is what you do, say, as a startup, for example, when your business revolves around analyzing your customers' data and providing new information to them, which they then pay you for, like an analytics company or something. And internal insight in the context of a startup is that you measure everything you do, how you engage with your users, customers, and you make your decisions on how you're going to build your company based on that insight. So those are the differences. And we have two people who's going to talk about this, and the first one up will be about external insight. So I'm going to welcome up here on stage someone who is a partner at Superhero Capital. He's an ex-entrepreneur. He founded a company that did fuel saving solutions and stayed on as CTO for that company for 11 years until he sold it to a stock-listed company for 43 million. He lives in Vihti. He has chickens. They lay eggs, and he brings them to the office, but not the chickens, just the eggs, and we make omelette, and they're really good. Jussi, Pyörre, please go ahead.
There you go. All right, thanks for the introduction, and my name is Jussi Pyörre. Currently, I'm a partner at Superhero Capital, and Jacob already gave a short history of what I've been doing previously, so I have a startup background myself. I've been a CTO, I've been a nerd my whole life, enjoying working with computers and all kinds of technology stuff, and that's what I still enjoy doing, and that's my role also at Superhero. A very short history on what Eniram was, and I guess it's currently was because it's currently totally merged into Wärtsilä. So it doesn't anymore exist as its own entity. So the company was founded in 2005. There were 4 founders, all without too much knowledge about marine industry. But we still founded the company and started to find out what we should be doing there. And very long story short, I'm going to rewind already to 2011 when we had our first products out. We had become the fastest growing company in Finland. And also I think we were the fastest growing green tech company. So quite nice merits at that time. And then again, fast forward 5 years, 2016, then Wärtsilä acquired us for 43 million. And of course, the big question is that why would a company pay 43 million for a company that these startup guys founded? So, well, there's the corporate explanation on what Eniram then eventually started doing. I'm not sure whether that tells anybody anything, so maybe I need to open that up just a bit. Maybe the key words there are marine industry, so we were in the marine industry. The second keyword there is that we were doing leading insights, so basically insights. We were collecting data from ships, refining the data, and then bringing the insights to our customers so that they could improve the operations of the ships. That was basically what they were doing. So what's the business case? Why were we doing this? Here's an example of currently the largest container ship in the world. That's on the right-hand side, Leadfeeder. And that ship is 60 meters wide, it's 400 meters long, and it can carry around 24,000 containers on the ship. So these vessels are massive. And you can imagine that the fuel consumption is also massive. Right? If I remember right, this one had a 75 megawatt engine. So the consumption is just huge. Actually, it would consume more than 20 million a year on fuel, but this is just an example. So 20 million on a fuel, let's say a vessel consumes that much. There's plenty of vessels that actually consume that much. If you were making 5% savings out of that $20 million, you would be saving 1 million. So clearly there is a business case, because you're saving this annually. So if you could save this much money, definitely there is a business case. And not just that, but you'll be also saving in fuel consumption. So that would translate to some 11,000 tons of CO2 emissions. And that's roughly around 2,000 cars that would emit that amount of fuel. And just remembering that this was the savings, imagine how much this one vessel is consuming fuel, because that was just a 5% savings. So that was our business case. So how did we do the savings? We were actually attacking different parts of the vessel using the data that we were collecting from those ships. One of the things where we started from was optimizing the hydrodynamics of the vessel. So what we were doing was we were adjusting, or we weren't adjusting, we were telling the crew to adjust how the vessel is there in the water. So how much the bow is deeper than the stern and so forth. We were collecting data about that, having some of our own sensors, and then we told it, okay, you should be having the vessel this certain attitude, as they call it, or trim. And that gives you a few percent of savings. The second thing which we did was we were optimizing the hull and propeller maintenance. So basically, that you actually damage the coating as well. So you don't want to do that more than necessary. So what we could actually do is we could measure what kind of an impact those operations have on the hull. So how much it actually starts consuming less, and how to optimize those brushing operations and polishing the propeller. Then the third thing we did was we were optimizing the route and speed, and then also the engine configurations of the vessel. So this was basically when you sail, you would need to decide at what speed you want to sail so that you would arrive to the next port in time, and also selecting the route that you could avoid all the bad weather conditions, but in addition to that, you would want to minimize the fuel consumption. So maybe you run on 3 engines first, and you continue with 4 later on. And we help them to do those decisions. And then the last thing, which actually came as, I think it was developed after I left Eniram. Partially, we had the proof of concepts ongoing at that time. So that was basically engine maintenance optimization. So we could actually see all kinds of anomalies, I guess that's how it's pronounced, on engines. So if there's something showing that the engine could fail soon, or the performance was deteriorating, then you could then do the maintenance at that time. So it's basically something where you kind of time the maintenance at the right time before anything bad happens and the performance is still good. And then we get to the actual meat part. This works. Hopefully. Let's give it. Okay, there you go. So how we did this all was basically we were collecting data from the navigation system and so forth, and then we also added some sensors there, which were measuring, for example, the trim of the vessel, so the attitude, the inclination of the vessel on the water. We were doing all that, and then we had some knowledge bases. For example, we had a global database of all depths. So So in the cloud service, we were using all sorts of machine learning methodologies to crunch the data. I'm going to soon give you a very short glimpse on what that actually is. I'm not going to deep dive, even though I would love to do that and spend a couple of days talking about it. And probably I wouldn't be even allowed in terms of the NDA and so forth. But nevertheless, so we were doing quite fancy machine learning stuff in order to analyze the data and then get the insights, squeeze the insights out from the data. And with those insights, we could then tell the crew what they should be doing, and then also for the onshore personnel, what kind of operations would make the vessel more efficient. And that would lead to the last stage, which is here called actions. So we had all kinds of different kind of UIs where you could monitor the data or see the advice. For example, on the shore side, we would be having a display where you can monitor, how well other ships are doing. If some ships are not as efficient as the other ones, and then you can deep dive and see why that's the case and so forth. And then we also had one of the last things we introduced was a mobile application as well. So you could actually get notifications on your mobile phone about upcoming events, like when you depart, then you would see that, okay, what's happening there on the route? Like, okay, there might be a hurricane coming, it would give you a notification or these kind of things. And that same data which was available on board would be also available on shore, and even some SVP level guys were using the solution because it was quite fancy to have it on your Apple Watch, and you can tell your friends that, yeah, I can see all the ships here. There you go. So, the product was too good. So we were like the Swiss watch, or the kind of the most elegant solution, the Ferrari of the business, and 95% of the market wanted a Toyota. They didn't want the Ferrari because the Toyota, when you build a Toyota, it's a different exercise. There you are very cost conscious. You are kind of taking out all the good features. You're kind of concentrating on the stuff with what really matters to the end user, like you. Okay, this is cool, but we're not going to do that. But there's still, quite often when you first enter a market, again, as a first mover, you need to build something really good because first of all, you don't know what is good enough. And the second thing is that you really need to convince the customers. Plus also the customers quite often are bigger players because they have the money to invest on this kind of, let's say, early adopting of the products in that sense. So we ended up building a pretty damn good solution. So I'm from the technical perspective, I'm super proud of what we built. So it was so accurate. I'm still 100% sure that nobody could do anything as accurately as we did. But unfortunately, for most of the customers, it didn't really matter. So you would need to then rethink the whole product for that market. So yeah. So what I have here. So what? Of course, the question would be, I'm now, saying all these things, things were bad and so forth, and we only made 43 million. Woo-hoo. But what I could say is that there's plenty of things you can actually affect. Decisions that affect the outcome of the company. And these are things which, no matter how much you are doing the pivots and all that stuff, it's still doable to some extent, but there are certain fundamental things which are really difficult to change. And it's just, you need to take certain things as facts, accept them, and then decide, when you found a company, you research these things, which might be holding you back in this specific industry. And then for this industry. So it definitely is worth of doing a bit of analysis before you jump into it. And then all the way through, you need to all the time think about these things like sales cycle. That's one of the most critical things you need to think about because that's kind of killing you unless you keep it short. I guess that's it. Any questions?
About sales team and how did you kind of create that, and at what point you actually understood that you need a sales team and who led that and what happened there? This is kind of very interesting to hear more about this, perhaps.
Yeah. So definitely we had a sales team, and it was enterprise sales, account teams, very knowledgeable. So it was actually hard to find sales guys who were smart enough to actually sell the product itself, because there were so many features, so many like small things you could adjust on it. So the transition from the founder-based sales to the sales team-based sales was quite painful for us. And also because the product was so good, it made it even more difficult, because it was so difficult to describe all the features. But we had teams. Some of them were located close to the customer. So we had in Germany, we had in Florida, we had in Singapore, and so forth. And that of course helps, because you need to be knocking on the door constantly, because otherwise the deal would still get delayed more. So you would need to kind of push them constantly. And doing that from Finland is quite much harder than if you are next door. Did this answer the question?
Yeah, well, also like how big of your kind of sales organization was that, and so on. Kind of just interesting to hear, because we were also kind of more or less like, well, doing that transition from like the normal tech founders are the worst salespeople there are, although they should be still with their company, but still there's the problem there. But kind of just kind of manage it and how to create that. The team, and then you have some companies who are just doing core tech, but they are very good sales, knack for that. So kind of more. This is just very interesting topic.
The first one is the Finnish founders, and the second one is, I don't know, US based. Yeah. So we basically in our case we had a pretty extensive sales team. So it was maybe, I forgot the figures. I'm not sure even if I can say them aloud, but it was significant team. So you really need for one big customer, you would almost need one sales guy. But of course our sales were quite big, so you could, one deal was ranging from 50,000 up to several hundreds of thousands, and then you have these annual subscriptions which were tens of thousands and so forth. So it made sense to pay this much for the sales team to have these customers. But it's a different story if you are not in an enterprise, then there's no way you can justify it.
So the long sales cycle, was it because of integrations that you need to do, or it was even before that, all the contracts?
Even before that.
Just to get the approval that to start a pilot.
Yeah, it's a slow-moving industry, so you need to meet them several times, gain the trust, and who was the one who was actually buying it, your contact person, and you need to convert that to your champion. Then you need to go and convince the crew that it actually makes sense to do these kind of things, because they would be, at the end of the day, doing the savings, because they are making the decisions of work. And then you need to go and convince the technical manager's boss somehow that this makes sense as well. And that you do by providing all kinds of, analysis on their fleet and their vessels, and maybe some preliminary results and all this, and then finally they could kind of bring the report for their boss, who may be still going to their boss to explain that this actually makes sense. It quite often went all the way to CFO to make the final decision. So it's a hard sales. All right. Any other questions? No? Thanks.
So Jussi talked about long sales cycles and old-fashioned industries, and now we're going to flip the coin. Next speaker is Pekka Koskinen from a company called Leadfeeder. As you're getting prepared to do your presentation, I'm going to say a few words about why Pekka is here to talk, and also why we are investors in Leadfeeder. So Leadfeeder tells you who's visited your website, basically. And when we talk to investors about Leadfeeder, say, okay, so they tell you who's gone to your website. The reaction is, so what? But when you look under the hood, it's amazing. I'll let Pekka take it from here.
All right, great to be here. I hope I'm in the stream also. My name is Pekka Koskinen, and thanks Jakob for the introduction. I'm talking about building an insights-driven company. I really liked Jakob's this idea of like transforming data into information to knowledge and then insights and wisdom. I can't talk about insights without also talking about how to get the data information, how to connect that all the points into the knowledge in order to get some insights. So I'm quite practical. I'm an entrepreneur. So my speech is quite practical here. So I'm gonna talk how we built all the insights that we are using currently to run the company. A bit about my background. This is my 4th startup that I'm running. So I made exits from my previous startups. The combined value was not 43 million. I'm not there yet, but I hope after Leadfeeder we will be definitely there. So just quickly about Leadfeeder, if you are not familiar, to know the background. So Leadfeeder is a SaaS tool for telling which companies visit the website. We identify companies that have behaved interestingly there, show those to you, qualify those, and then push those to your CRM. So your salespeople are more informed what's happening on your website and can generate more leads. How we are in the customers' lead generation funnel, how do we compare to marketing automation tools and others? I would say that we are in the step before those. So once somebody comes to your website, if they engage with your live chat, they leave their contact details, there are other tools that then take the customers forward. Where we concentrate are the 98% of the visitors that don't contact you. So that's where we are. Currently, we have around 6 million annual revenues, 85 people in the team, 20 in Finland, the rest is all over US and Europe. For this presentation, the most important thing is that we are a SaaS company. I think we are pretty typical SaaS company, and the information needs and insights needs we have are quite typical for the SaaS company. What we try to build is a machine that grows the business by itself. And I'm going to talk to you about the machine and then all the supporting technology and the insights driven from those to make this happen. So if you look at our growth model here, so we can see it's quite typical SaaS growth model combining inbound and outbound methods. So in the inbound world, we are using marketing tools to drive traffic to our website. The website converts those to signups. The users get 2-week free trial for the product. If they like the product during the trial time, they put the credit card in and start paying for the tool. On the outbound side, we are having sales teams that are calling customers, training them, and then closing sales. And marketing, sales, customer success team's main job is to develop this system and optimize this system to work as well as possible.